Ever notice how a simple conversation can explode into a full-blown war, even when nobody meant for it to? One minute you're just talking, the next you're defending yourself, shutting down, or wondering how things escalated so fast. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. Conversations don't fall apart because of bad communication. They fall apart because the nervous system feels threatened. In this video, you'll discover why arguments escalate, why logic stops working mid-fight, and why your body reacts before your mind can keep up. You'll learn what's really happening beneath emotional triggers, silence, defensiveness, and power struggles, and how regulation, not resolution, is the key to restoring connection. If you've ever felt unheard, overwhelmed, or exhausted by relationship conflict, this will change the way you see every argument from now on. The conversation you think you're having isn't the one your body is hearing. Most people believe relationship conflict starts with words, but the body hears something else entirely. While one person thinks they're discussing facts or solving a problem, the nervous system is scanning for danger, tone, timing, facial expression, history. By the time voices rise, communication in relationships has already shifted from meaning to survival, even if neither person realizes it yet. That's why relationship fights explained logically never actually feel resolved. A sentence like, "we need to talk," may sound neutral, but to a nervous system shaped by attachment wounds or past emotional abandonment, it can translate as threat. The body reacts before the mind can intervene, triggering emotional flooding, a fight or flight response, and emotional reactivity that makes calm communication almost impossible. A clear example is Prince Harry, who spoke openly about how certain conversations in his relationships triggered intense stress responses rooted in childhood trauma patterns. He wasn't reacting to the words, he was reacting to what his body remembered. Once you see this, it becomes clear why arguments escalate so fast and why the next layer isn't about what's said, but about the deeper protest for safety underneath. Every argument is a protest for safety. When voices rise or defenses come out, what's really happening isn't aggression, it's a protest. Beneath anger, criticism, or sharp words lies a quieter message. Do I matter here? In relationship conflict, people rarely fight to win. They fight to feel safe, seen, and emotionally protected. When emotional safety in relationships feels threatened, connection instantly turns into combat. That's why phrases like, "you never listen," or "you always do this," show up so fast. They aren't logical accusations, they're nervous system alarms. The body senses danger, rejection, abandonment, loss of value, and launches a trauma response. Emotional dysregulation takes over, and instead of emotional validation or calm communication, both people slide into defensive communication without even noticing. A well-known example is Will Smith, who has spoken about how anger in his relationships often masked a deeper fear of being disrespected or emotionally invisible. Once he realized his reactions were protests for safety, not strength, his entire understanding of conflict shifted, and that realization opens the door to the next truth: why simple disagreement can feel so painfully personal in the first place. Why disagreement feels like rejection. On the surface, disagreement sounds harmless. Two opinions, two perspectives. But inside the body, it often lands very differently. For many people, especially those with attachment wounds, hearing "I don't agree" doesn't register as difference, it registers as distance. The nervous system quietly translates disagreement into emotional abandonment, and suddenly a simple conversation feels personal and threatening. This is where attachment styles in conflict show up. If someone learned early on that love was conditional, disagreement can feel like being pushed out of connection. Emotional flooding follows fast, racing thoughts, tightening chest, defensive tone. That's why arguments in relationships escalate so quickly. The body isn't debating ideas, it's trying to protect belonging and emotional safety. A powerful example is Taylor Swift, who has openly reflected on how disagreement in past relationships triggered intense fear of not being chosen. She wasn't reacting to opinions, she was reacting to the possibility of disconnection. Once you see this pattern, it becomes easier to pause, regulate emotions during conflict, and realize that not all differences are threats, which leads straight into the next layer where old wounds start speaking louder than present words. Old wounds speak louder than present words. In many relationship conflicts, what hurts most isn't what was just said, it's what the body remembers. Arguments often activate childhood trauma patterns, inner child wounds, and unfinished emotional history that existed long before the relationship itself. In those moments, the nervous system isn't responding to the present situation, it's responding to memory. That's why certain phrases feel explosive while others barely register. A simple comment can trigger intense emotional reactivity because it echoes past experiences of being dismissed, criticized, or emotionally abandoned. This is relational trauma in action. The body confuses now with then, flooding the system with stress responses that hijack communication before awareness can catch up. Lady Gaga has spoken openly about how early emotional wounds shaped how intensely she reacted to conflict in relationships. She later realized she wasn't fighting her partner. She was protecting a younger, hurt version of herself. Once this clicks, something shifts. You begin to see that control, defensiveness, or urgency in arguments aren't about the moment at all. They're about survival, which leads directly into why power replaces vulnerability next. Control replaces vulnerability. When emotions feel unsafe. When emotions start to feel risky, many people instinctively reach for control. Correcting details, winning arguments, or proving a point often feels safer than admitting fear, sadness, or insecurity. In relationship conflict, control becomes emotional armor, a way for the nervous system to avoid vulnerability when emotional safety feels uncertain or fragile. That's why power struggles escalate so quickly. Instead of saying, "that hurt me," or "I'm scared of losing you," people argue about tone, facts, or who's right. Defensive communication takes over, vulnerability disappears, and emotional intelligence drops. A powerful shift is pausing the debate to name the feeling underneath it. Even something as simple as, "I'm overwhelmed right now." That small honesty can soften the entire dynamic. Kanye West has openly shared how control and defensiveness showed up when he felt emotionally unsafe or misunderstood. His reactions weren't about dominance, they were about protection. Once this pattern becomes visible, it's easier to see why silence often follows control attempts, and why withdrawal doesn't calm conflict, but quietly intensifies it from the inside. Silence is not neutral. It's interpreted as abandonment. When one person goes quiet during conflict, they often believe they're preventing things from getting worse, but silence is rarely neutral on the receiving end. In relationships, emotional withdrawal or stonewalling is often experienced as emotional abandonment, triggering fear, panic, and stress responses that intensify the conflict internally, even when no words are spoken. For the nervous system, silence can feel like disappearance. The body interprets it as danger. I'm alone in this, activating fight or flight, emotional flooding, and urgent attempts to reconnect. This is why silent treatment psychology is so damaging. What feels like self-protection to one partner feels like rejection or punishment to the other, deepening communication breakdown instead of restoring calm. Meghan Markle has spoken about how emotional withdrawal in relationships activated feelings of being unseen and unsupported. She wasn't reacting to quiet itself, but to what that quiet represented. Once this becomes clear, a crucial truth emerges. Conflict doesn't heal through distance alone. It heals when regulation comes before resolution. The war ends when regulation comes before resolution. Most conversations turn into wars because people try to solve the problem while their nervous systems are still on fire. Logic can't land when the body feels threatened. Until emotional regulation happens, every word sounds sharper, every pause feels dangerous, and every disagreement feels personal. Connection doesn't return through better arguments. It returns when the body feels calm enough to listen again. That's why regulating emotions during conflict is the real skill most couples never learn. Simple practices can make a huge difference. Slowing the breath for 60 seconds, grounding the feet, softening the jaw, or saying, "I need a moment to regulate, not to leave." These body-based awareness tools calm emotional flooding and restore psychological safety, making calm communication possible instead of forced. Barack Obama has spoken about learning to pause and regulate before responding during high-stakes disagreements. He understood that leadership and relationships collapse when reactivity leads. When regulation comes first, conversations stop being power struggles and start becoming bridges. And once someone experiences that shift, they realize the war was never about words. It was about safety all along. If there's one truth to take with you, it's this. Conversations don't turn into wars because of words. They turn into wars because the nervous system feels unsafe. Beneath anger, silence, or defensiveness is a body trying to protect itself. When you learn to regulate before you respond, conflict stops being a battle and starts becoming a bridge. That's why I recommend watching our previous video, Return to Your Peace. It teaches how to calm your nervous system and create inner safety, the foundation for healthy communication. So ask yourself, in your last argument, were you trying to connect or just survive? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Here, we're replacing conflict with clarity, one conversation at a time.